Hi everyone, welcome to Cloud Ranger's Microsoft Azure training. As you know, I'm Sean Ismail, a Microsoft Azure MVP. That's my contact info right down there, my email, Twitter, blog, YouTube, the slides, and if you want to add me on LinkedIn. So today we are going to talk about Azure storage. This is the part 3, and I'm kind of sorry it took a while to get from part 2 to part 3. I've been busy with a lot of other things, but what we are going to talk about today is table, queue, and file storage. These are the different kind of storage besides the blob storage in Azure Storage Subsystem. Okay, so let's get started. This is not going to be a very long session, by the way, among other sessions relatively. I'm going to introduce the concept and we're going to jump right in and get hands-on on how to do this table, queue, and file storage thing. Okay, so table storage, let's start with that the first. So table storage is used to store data in tables. So it's very similar to the tables you know from SQL, let that be SQL, Microsoft SQL, or any other SQL product. So this is similar. The tables are similar. However, it's a little different from structured tables. So the tables in Azure Storage do not have any constraints. Like they're not exactly like relational databases, as they do not have any schema. So some of you SQL guys are probably going crazy right now thinking, how can you not have a schema? Well, there are benefits of not having a schema. So what you can do is have the rows have different properties. So this is great for prototyping when you are designing a table and you have to keep adding and removing data in the table with different properties to see what you really need, and maybe end up having a proper design and schema for a table for your real work in another SQL side. So there are advantages of having a table without the relational database constraints with no schema, right? Very good for prototyping your applications or designing your databases. And the next we have is the queue storage. So this is very interesting for some of the application developers. This will probably make a lot of sense. So the reason you would use a queue is for, let's say, uh, I'm looking for a very good example, like a distributed application, so they can communicate with each other. Um, so let's say you are going online and you are ordering a product. So during the busy season, you'll see that every time you order a product, they actually will just take your order and probably not process it right away. What they will do is they'll keep that in a queue to process it at a later time, because the online site is so busy, because let's say it's during Christmas or Boxing Day here in Canada, or Black Friday in USA, or wherever you are. So you can actually see on these websites, it will actually tell you you are that number person on the queue, because the systems that are in the back end trying to process this information are still trying to catch up. They do not want to lose your record or just add them somewhere, because they want to process it first before doing anything. Okay, so this can be great when you have a lot of data incoming and you want to store them somewhere temporarily before you actually store them. So what they do is, and you can use this for different applications, actually talking asynchronously among each other, right? So you have an application that is sending some sort of a message, let's say, or some sort of an information to another application or a service. So what you can do is, ideally, it's a very connection-oriented service, or we think of any connection as very connection or very stateful. Means that if application wants to talk to the other application, we think it's going to happen right away. It's a client-server model. However, you can do this asynchronously, right? So in a queue, you can keep sending messages or information. It will be stored in a queue, and the application from the other side will do whatever it will do and start, taking one by one these elements of the queue and process them or decipher them or do whatever they need to do. So having a queue is great for this purposes. And yeah, that's pretty much about the queue. And the online example is pretty much the only one I can think of where you'd do something like that. Maybe a developer or somebody can chime in the comments section and let us know what else they use queues for. And the third one is the most interesting one, the file storage. So it is basically the Smb file share in Azure, right? And what it really means is that, think of it as you can create a file share on your storage in your storage account and use that file share anywhere else in the environment or even not in the environment. The good part about this file share is that it can be mapped on different virtual machines or in a different environment with the virtual machines. So essentially, you can actually make your storage account a file share server. So you can have multiple shares over there. You don't need to create a server, then create the shares and do old school how we used to create file shares back in the days. And it's a great way to actually expedite a lot of things in Azure. So for example, in my most production environments I've seen, I'll create a share where I'll have the ISO files. So all the installed files for SQL, Exchange, SharePoint, or whatever, and keep them in one location. So when I'm doing any test in a lab or even deploying in production, all I have to do is map that on that virtual machine and take the ISO file from there rather than downloading it each time or having it downloaded in a virtual machine somewhere and then copying it from there and stuff like that. Okay, so these are the things we need to talk about today, the table, queue, and file storage. And what I'm going to do is right now jump into the virtual machine and start showing you how this thing works. I'm going to sort of be heavy on PowerShell on this session, even though everything you can actually do from the new Azure portal now, right? Okay, so let's get started. All right, so I am in my portal here, and the storage account that I have created is, or the one of our interest is Ranger Store 20. Okay, I basically used a PowerShell script over here to create it. You guys should know by now from the previous sessions how to create this, so I'm not going to go over how to create a storage account. What I'm interested more is in the next one. So let's go over here and go to the account. And bear with me here, the portal has been really acting up today. So let's go see over here. So as you can see over here, you have blobs, which we went over in a previous session. We are going to talk about files, tables, and queues. I think the very first one we are going to talk about is the table. Okay, so what we can do here is go to the tables and let it load. As you can see, there is no table over here. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a table here. Let's go to PowerShell. We are first going to get the Azure storage account that we are working on. So let's go and see that. It's Ranger 20. It's going to, I usually do this to just check everything's okay. It's not really doing anything except finding the information out. Okay, so I know it's there. So let's go grab the storage key. You should be familiar with this at this point as well. The primary key, that's what I'm interested in. Because we are going to create that storage context. And if you remember, the storage context is where we're taking all that information as an object and storing it in there in the storage context. So let's get the storage key. Let's get the storage context. I'm running that. And now what we are going to do is create a new Azure table. So before I do that, there is no table over here. I want to actually use the Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, which I showed you in previous sessions as well, to actually show you what's happening. So let's run this tool. I find this as a very handy tool. So I have actually two storage accounts. The one we are working on is the Ranger Store 20. Let's expand that. And as you can see under table, there's nothing. Okay, queues, all these are empty. So let's go ahead and create a table in our storage account. And we are going to do that with new Azure Storage Table commandlet. We are going to give a name to this table. Let's call it my table 1. Let's actually change all of this. And we're saying the context of this is the storage account. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And as you can see, it went just like that and created a table. So I want to show you this Azure table again. So get Azure tables in a subscription. So I want to show you all the Azure tables that are there in this storage account. Actually, I'm not going to call this a subscription. Let's change that in a storage account because we are going to go through this context, right? So in this storage account, it's the same output that came out over here. Let's format this a little bit and see what we can get. Okay, so this actually gives a better output. So the cloud table's name is my table. this is the URI. So if you remember all the URIs we talked about, Ranger Storage 20 is the storage account, .table. So this is not blob any longer. It's .table, .core, .windows, and this is the table name. So this is how you refer to this table. Okay. I want to go over here. Let's refresh this a little bit, and you should see there is a table under here now called my table 1, if everything worked out okay. My table 1. Okay. You can delete the table from here if you want to. And there's no information in this table, so there's nothing to view. I'm not going to go through all of that. So let's refresh this as well. You can see my table comes up over here, and it actually gives you the URL to access that. So that's all there is to create this table, to be honest. I'm not going to go through an application because this will get a little complicated and go off topic a little bit on how to populate this table or do anything. As a sysadmin, you're probably going to just create this table and have all the information handy for a application developer to actually start using this, right? Or if you're an application developer, you know exactly what to do to actually start working with this table. Let's go over here. And the last thing you want to do over here is remove the storage table. So you basically run the commandlet remove Azure storage table, give the table name and the context, and that should be it. So really, that's all there is to actually a table. And so if I go to the slide here, I have this on this. I have all the commandlets that are ran over here. Obviously, change the storage account name and the table name when you do this. Get Azure table in a subscription. I'm going to edit this before I upload this to SlideShare to make sure it's in a storage account, so there's no typo there. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, and this is going to be pretty simple as well. We're going to start talking about queues, and you'll find out the commandlets are sort of similar, but what happens is that it's sort of similar, and we are going to still create it from PowerShell. So let's go do that right now. So the next step here, I'm creating a queue. So it's similar. You get your storage key and you set up your storage context. No big deal. We're going to have that in here. The commandlet to create the storage queue is pretty simple. New Azure storage queue. You give a name to the queue and the context. It's very similar to how we did a table. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this commandlet. You can see this time it created that successfully, and this time the URI is Ranger Store 20. This is the storage account name, and it's queue.core.windows.net and my queue over here. So the previous one over here was table, and this one is queue. Similar to how we had the blob, right? And let's run the next commandlet. It will pretty much show you the same output over here. We will go to the storage explorer, and if we come over here, you're not going to see it, so you have to refresh this real quick. And let's go over here. You should see my queue in here as well. Okay, so similarly, we created the queue. Before we get off this slide, remove Azure storage queues the way you remove that queue as well. So I want to come over here and let's refresh this. Yeah, the portal has been a little buggy today. So let's refresh this real quick. Okay, there you go. My queue showed up here. Took a while, but it got there. So we created a table and we created queues. The most interesting one I'm waiting to show you is actually the files over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start working on the files. You can create the file shares and everything from here using the file share. This thing is still loading, so it's not showing it from here. But you can actually create the file share, and let's go ahead and try to do that. I'm going to refresh this once again. Sorry about this. The portal is acting up a little bit today, so I keep refreshing it to actually start loading. As you can see, there's no file share right now. You don't have any file shares to get the options, so this is still loading, so I cannot do it from here, but you should be able to click file shares here and get this started. However, we are trying to go and do this with PowerShell, so let's try with the PowerShell. Similar, once again, let's get the storage key and the context. What I'm trying to do over here right now is create a new Azure storage share. So we are going to use this commandlet. We are going to name this file share as my file share 1 very appropriately and give it a context. Okay, so let's clear the screen over here. Let's go create the share. That's all it takes to create the share. So if you actually just run the share command by itself, it will actually show that you created my file share 1 or or whatever your file share name is, software, applications, or whatever you want to call it. You can leave it the way it is right now, but I'm going to go one step forward and do something else, which is create a directory in this share. Okay, you can totally ignore this step at this point, but I'm going to do that, and I'm going to also upload a file in there so I can show you how you can create that share, create that directory, and then upload a file from your on-premise environment to over there. So I have a simple text file that I'm going to do, but like I mentioned, this could be an ISO file, this could be a large, I don't even know, VHD file. It could be a large SQL database if you want. It's a great way to transfer files somewhere to copy it to virtual machines. I use it a lot to store my ISO files, so I can use this in a lab, connect it to different virtual machines and do everything. So before we do that, let's go ahead and refresh this once again. By the way, I'm hoping that by the time you guys are watching this video, the portal issues are, taken care of. It's just happening to me today, but you shouldn't have to refresh this as much. As you can see, it created a share called My File Share 1, and it has given it a quota. So right now, this file share can handle up to 5 terabytes of storage, which is quite a bit, right? So let's actually get into the details of this. Let's go into settings. Look at properties here. Probably will take forever to load, or you can even go to monitoring over here to see what is going on, all the requests that are coming in, success, latency. It actually shows you how much data that was transferred. Let's go to properties here real quick. It's taking time to load again, and that still keeps loading. So let's get out of here. There's not much over here besides finding some information. Let's actually click on this and get into more details of this share. So we are going into the details of My File Share 1 share over here. All right, as you can see over here, this file share is right now completely empty. There's nothing here. There's no content in this share. You can see on the top over here, there are a bunch of options. You can actually upload a file right from the portal. So rather than using this commandlet where we were saying that we are going to, upload a file to the share, you can actually use the portal to do that. You can create a directory from here as well, rather than using the PowerShell. You can delete the share, have the properties, look into the quota. What I want to concentrate over here, these are basic tasks and you should be able to figure this out yourself, and we will be running the PowerShell to do this. What I want to show you over here is this connect option over here. Let's create on this connect option. So this is what I wanted to show you. It's actually telling you how to connect to this file share from your virtual machine. It's giving you the command from you can run from the command prompt with an elevated access, which is net use, give it a drive later. So this is how the share is going to be accessed. And if you can see, this is very similar to the URI I was showing before. Your cloud storage account over here, file.core.windows, and My File Share 1 was the share name. The username for the share for mapping, and this is something you must be wondering by now, is the cloud storage account, Ranger Store 20. So that is the username. And the password is going to be actually the access key of this storage account. So that means you can actually have this connected to your virtual machine, the share, by using this command. You can do this in your subscription. You can do this in other subscriptions in other environments in different organizations. And the reason you can do it is because of this. This is publicly accessible URI, right? And you can actually go ahead and use the storage account access key and username to actually get to this location. So that sort of works out. Okay, so obviously you'll be doing this in a different way, not through the UNC, but this is how you can do it. What I'm going to do is I actually created a virtual machine already to save the time, and I'm going to map this, and I'm not going to use this. I'm going to show you the GUI way of doing this actually. So let's do this. I'm going to copy this location because this is the one we want to go to. So I created a VM called Ranger VM1. Let's go there. So the way you do that is obviously come to this computer or go to your Explorer, go to this PC. Let's go to computer, map network drive. So map network drive. This is one way of doing it, the easiest way of doing it. Or you could have done what they were referring to, is go to command prompt over here, run it as administrator, and pretty much do the net use command from here, obviously putting in the details. So we're going to try it over here. So I'm going to use B as my drive, the folder. I'm putting in the UNC path, the entire path over here. I'm going to say connect using different credentials, and if I want this map drive to be connected every time, I can use this, but I'm going to say connect using different credentials, okay? Because the credential I'm using to log in is going to be very different from the storage account credentials. So do a finish over here. It should prompt me. So I've already tried this once, that's why this showed up here, but what I'm going to do over here is put the username. I want to show you that the username is coming from here, if you don't remember or you need to check it out. So let's put the username there, and it's asking for the password. The password is going to be the storage key, access key. How do we get that? Well, if you remember, we were getting the storage key for creating the storage context. So you can literally run this much of this commandlet and get the storage key, because you're not really storing it anywhere. Or you can just run the storage key over here, whatever works for you. So I'm running the primary, and this is the primary key. So this essentially becomes the entire password for that account. So let's go ahead and do that. You gotta be a little careful when you put this in and how you paste and everything. It's a long string. And once we do that, as you can see, we are connected as B drive, right? So if you come back, you'll see this one is B drive. So there's nothing in there. So let's do one thing over here. I'm going to create a file over here, and I'm going to call this from VM, okay? Just to keep a tab on it, from VM. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. If I click on this or refresh this, I should be able to see from VM. There you go. The file is over here. So there are some operations you can do on this file from here, like you can download the file, you can delete the file, you can do a bunch of stuff. You can also upload a file from here. Let's just click on upload, and you should be able to upload a file from here to the Azure portal. So basically, I can take from anything from my on-premises here and put it over there. So I want to show you that through a commandlet, actually. So before we do that, let's actually create the directory. So new Azure storage directory commandlet, and I'm giving the share variable over here, the share that we picked up, which is my share, and this is the path, my directory. I'm going to call it my directory. Let's actually create that. Okay, it created one as my directory. So if I go to this VM over here, there you go. You should see actually a new folder or directory got created. You can also create one from here, right? I mean, you can create a folder from here as well. I'm just showing you different options. What I'm going to do is have a file, which I already have in my temp folder in my local computer. So if I go to my local computer here, and you can see in my temp, there is a file called test1.txt. I'm going to just put this. It could very well have been any file, right, from my computer. Just because this is short 1 KB file, I want to put this as a demo. So let's go ahead and upload that to this directory. So I'm saying go to the share, go to this directory, and do this there. Let's try this. It actually uploaded it. It's a 1 KB file, so it went right away. If I go to my VM right now, go to my directory, I should actually see that file. Great way to upload file to file shares. Okay, and this is how you delete it. Remove Azure Storage Share. Very simple to do, but I want to come over here, refresh this, and see what else we have here. Okay, as you can see, once we refresh this, a directory showed up because we created that directory. And once we go in this directory, we should be able to see this file. It's just taking too much time to load, so I'm not going to get into that. But you can actually run those operations from here. So technically, my file share 1 can be connected to any virtual machines in your environment to actually share these files. So basically, it's a file share server that runs off your Azure account. I mean, is that cool or what? It's pretty cool, actually. And I think that's all we have over here. So let's go back to our slides. This was the table storage, all the commandlets. This is the one for the queue storage, all the commandlets over here for your convenience. And this is the file storage. All the commandlets are here as well. So I'm going to have this slide uploaded to SlideShare, go beginning of this video to actually see where the SlideShare location is, okay? So this was a very nice and short video of all the things that are there to do with table, queues, and the file share. I haven't worked much with the queue and table, to be honest, but I have worked quite a bit with this file service. Long ago, almost last year, when the file share was in preview, if you guys have been following all my videos, this was in preview, and I did briefly get into it and not so much into it. But this session today is completely dedicated to it, right? And it's a very helpful feature. All right, so that kind of brings us to the end of this session. Here is all the info again, the training site where it's located, YouTube channel is where you are viewing this, the slides. A lot of people keep emailing me still where the slides are. This is where the slides are. Slideshare.net, Sean Ismail. I'll try to upload this as soon as possible. My Twitter is Sean Ismail. Please follow me there, and email as usual, and LinkedIn. Anyways, guys, so that's all I have for this session today. Thank you for viewing, and please do not forget to like the videos on YouTube. Thank you, and I'll see you in next